Hi there, I'm Mila Sipka, and this is the Apatros Review. Now, for fans of the 1990s direct-to-video series Bloodfist, I will do Bloodfist 6, 7, 8 by the end of the year. As for this episode, we take a look at Bloodfist 2050, which is actually also Bloodfist 9 and also known as Street Fighter 2050. This is a Philippines production and it was a telepic as well. It premiered in US on TV on August of 2005, and then it had its DVD premiere in Japan on the 3rd of August 2007. It was directed by Ciro H. Santiago, written by Michael Henry Cairo, and produced by Santiago and Roger Corman. Now for the cast, we have Matt Mullins, Jess Sabatino, Beverly Lynn, Glenn Meadows, and Joe Murray Evelena. Joe Murray Evelena also being the production designer, and he did the same thing in the first two Bloodfist films, where he played the villains Kwong in the original and Sue in the second film. Now the DVD itself, it is actually a cheap $2 DVD from Flashback Entertainment. I'll talk about the DVD later. Now, the so far final film in the Bloodfist franchise, also going under the titles of Street Fighter 2015 Bloodfist 9, made a good decade or so after the previous film, is a loose remake of the original Bloodfist, only done in a futuristic setting, and shot back in the birthplace of the original film, badass country known as the Philippines. The director of this was the legendary Filipino director Ciro H. Santiago, of which this was his last film credit, and also being the only Bloodfist not to have franchise star Don the Dragon Wilson play the lead role. Instead, here we have Matt the Champa Mullins. Set in the year 2050, and beginning right off the bat with some stock footage from one of Santiago's old 1980s Mad Max knockoffs, of explosions, car chases, and Filipino stuntmen lying on the bottom of the car firing shotguns at the hero, like while dressed like they're planning to go to an SM club, Army deserter Alex Danko, played by Matt Mullins, heads to Los Angeles in order to look up his brother Johnny. But unfortunately for him, the Los Angeles of the year 2050 is an even bigger shithole than it is now, and most of the locals look like Filipino natives, while people walk around with assault rifles and kids play with used syringes in the streets. Alex discovers that Johnny was killed the night before his arrival, right after winning a bout in the pit, a freestyle tournament where there are no rules in the ring except for not using weapons. Falling in with his late brother's stripper girlfriend and a fighter brother, both played by softcore adult performers who are married to each other in real life, Alex meets his brother's trainer, a police detective named Marino, who goes by the handle Slick, who promises him that they will find a killer, but in order to do so, Alex needs to hit into the pit and before it fighters and basically take them on, including the arrogant bastard known as the Great Ahmed Khan, who looks likely to be the main suspect. But as Alex fights his way through the tournament, he begins to discover that the real killer is somebody he's already met and is close to him. Now, this being a telepic remake of Bloodfist, anyone who's seen the original film will be able to guess the entire plot within the first 10 minutes, or without knowing that it's a remake of the original. There are certainly no surprises kept here, and the film's reason d'etre lies in brutal hand-to-hand fights between the film's complement of trained martial artists. The fights themselves look pretty decent, and the fact that the fighters are all professionals in the art of applying their hands, feet and heads to the bodies of their opponents makes the fights look somewhat authentic. The film's production design looks rather average due to the low budget, and barring a couple of atrocious CGI shots of the futuristic Los Angeles skyline, the visual effects are on the minimal side. There is also a surprisingly substantial amount of superfluous footage of strippers performing their strip routines in full, with all sorts of transition effects to style the routines, and anyone who doesn't know that this was shot in 2005 will honestly believe that this movie came out in the 1980s, given the ancient Filipino cameras and equally old film stock used to make the movie. The fact this was meant for television kind of does in my head in a little because of all the violence and nudity in this, but the tolerances to television broadcasts were still pretty strict in the 2000s, so this was most likely a cable television release, given cable channels were much more liberal in their tolerances of violent sexual content. Now, Bloodfist 2050 earns a D+, 3 out of 10. It's on a par with the original Bloodfist in quality, since both are disappointing films, but not truly bad given the copious fighting on display here. And the strictly functional storyline with no time to fuck around, this film runs at a trim 79 minutes in PAL format, and the frequent nudity is also nice to see for B-movie fans. Now, for gore nudity, not a gory film aside from bruises, cuts and black eyes on the fighters, but the nudity is plentiful, with numerous boobs and Beverly Lynn showing off her whole body in different places during her strip routines and the sexing of Matt Mullins. Now for the DVD, this is released in Australia on a cheap $2 recommended retail price DVD from my old friends at Flashback Entertainment. No subtitles or supplemental materials to be found here, but the picture looks as good as they could afford, and the sound is decent. And it's pretty much in stereo of a 1:33 aspect ratio. No subtitles. Okay, so that's it for Bloodfist 2050. I give the film a D+, which is a 3 out of 10. I mean, it's disappointing. Not terrible, not bad, but just disappointing, mediocre. Now, like I said, if you want to find this DVD, it is, during the mid-2000s, it was kind of easy to find. But now, maybe not so much. But you can check eBay. Just look for this one. Okay, I hope you guys are staying safe. Now, I do not do requests, but if you have any questions about DVDs, or want to know which titles I have in my collection, just hit me up in the comment section. I'll be happy to answer. Hope you guys are staying safe, and that's it for this review.